The microphone dropped. Silence. 3,000 people held their breath. Robin Williams stood frozen on stage, his hands trembling slightly, his eyes fixed on a woman in the third row. The spotlight that usually made him come alive now felt like it was exposing something he had kept hidden for decades. His mouth opened, but no joke came out. No improvisation. No character voice. Just silence. And in that silence, something broke open that would change not just that night, but the way everyone in that theater understood what it meant to truly save a life. This wasn't supposed to happen. Robin Williams was there to make people laugh. He had done it thousands of times before, walked onto stages across the world, transformed pain into comedy, turned darkness into light. But this night in Seattle, at the Moore Theater, something different was unfolding. Something he hadn't prepared for. Something that would reach back through 20 years of his life and pull forward a truth he had never spoken out loud. But to understand what happened in that moment, we need to go back. Back to where it all began. Subscribe now, because the most powerful moment of Robin Williams' life is still ahead, and you won't want to miss what happens next. It was 1989. Robin Williams was already a household name. Mork and Mindy had made him famous. Good Morning, Vietnam had proven he could act. But Dead Poets Society was different. It wasn't just another role. It was a mirror. The character of John Keating, the English teacher who inspired his students to seize the day, to think for themselves, to find their own voice, resonated with something deep inside Robin. He wasn't just playing a teacher. He was channeling every mentor who had ever believed in him, every moment when someone had told him it was okay to be different, to be strange, to be brilliantly, chaotically himself. But what Robin didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that those words, those scenes, that performance, would travel far beyond the screen. They would reach into homes, into bedrooms, into the quiet desperation of teenagers who felt invisible. One of those teenagers was named Michael. Michael was 16 years old in 1989. He lived in a small town in Washington state, the kind of place where being different wasn't celebrated, it was punished. He was bullied relentlessly. Not because he did anything wrong, but because he was quiet, sensitive, different. He wrote poetry in notebooks he hid under his bed. He felt like he was drowning in a world that didn't want him. One Friday night, his older sister dragged him to see Dead Poets Society. Michael didn't want to go. He didn't want to do anything anymore. But he went. And something happened. When Robin Williams stood on that desk in the movie and said, "We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race. And the human race is filled with passion." Something inside Michael cracked open. For the first time in months, he felt seen. He felt like maybe, just maybe, there was a reason to stay. That night, instead of going through with the plan he had been building in his mind for weeks, Michael went home and wrote. He wrote poetry. He wrote about pain, about loneliness, about the suffocating weight of being invisible. And he kept writing. Every day. For years. Michael didn't know that 20 years later, his mother would be sitting in the third row of the Moore Theater, holding a letter she had written but never sent. Fast forward to 2009. Robin Williams was on a comedy tour. Not because he needed the money or the fame, but because he needed the connection. After years of movies, after rehab, after personal struggles that had been splashed across tabloids, Robin needed to feel that electric exchange with a live audience. He needed to remember why he started performing in the first place. The Moore Theater in Seattle was packed. The energy was high. Robin was in his element, riffing, improvising, doing voices, making the audience howl with laughter. He talked about politics, about getting older, about his kids. He was brilliant. He was on fire. And then, during a pause between bits, a woman's voice cut through the laughter. "Robin." It wasn't loud. It wasn't aggressive. But it was clear. Clear enough that Robin heard it. Clear enough that the audience heard it. And something in the tone of that single word made Robin stop. He looked toward the voice. Third row. A woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and trembling hands, was standing. She wasn't holding a sign or a gift. She was holding a folded piece of paper. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice breaking. The audience went silent. This wasn't part of the show. This was real. Robin stepped closer to the edge of the stage. His comedian persona melted away. "Yeah?" he said softly. The woman's hands were shaking as she unfolded the paper. 20 years ago, my son saw Dead Poets Society. He was 16. He was planning to take his own life that weekend." The silence in the theater became absolute. No one moved. No one coughed. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. "Your words," she continued, her voice cracking. "Your performance, the way you told those boys that their lives mattered, that their voices mattered, it saved him. He didn't go through with it. He wrote instead. He wrote poetry. He went to college. He became a teacher." Tears were streaming down her face now. "He teaches English. He uses your movie every year. He tells his students what you taught him, that life is worth living, that their voices matter, that they are not alone." Robin stood there, microphone hanging loosely in his hand. His eyes were glistening. The audience was frozen, witnessing something sacred. "He wanted to be here tonight," the woman said, her voice barely a whisper now. "But he's teaching. So I came. To tell you. To thank you. You saved my son's life, Robin. And you didn't even know. What happened next, no one in that theater would ever forget. Robin Williams, the man who made the world laugh, who hid his pain behind characters and voices, who spent his entire life making sure everyone else felt seen, stood there and wept. Not the performative crying of a comedian doing a bit. Real tears. The kind that come from a place so deep that words can't reach it. He walked to the edge of the stage, knelt down, and reached out his hand. The woman stepped forward, and he took both of her hands in his. "What's his name?" Robin asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Michael," she said. Robin nodded, squeezing her hands. "Tell Michael." He paused, struggling to find words. "Tell Michael that he saved me too." The audience gasped. A few people started crying. Robin stood up, still holding the woman's hand, and looked out at the 3,000 people in the theater. "You think I'm up here saving people?" he said, his voice raw. "I'm up here because you saved me. Every laugh. Every moment you let me into your lives. I'm just a guy trying to make sense of this world, same as you. And Michael did something I've been trying to do my whole life. He found his voice. He used it. And now he's helping other kids find theirs." Robin let go of the woman's hand and stepped back. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, took a deep breath, and looked down at the microphone in his hand. "I don't know what to do with this now," he said with a small, broken laugh. "How do you follow that?" The audience laughed, but it was different now. It was the laughter of people who had just witnessed something transcendent. Something that reminded them why art matters. Why stories matter. Why showing up for each other matters. Robin didn't do another joke that night. He talked. Really talked. About his own struggles with depression. About the times he felt like giving up. About how acting, comedy, performing, they weren't just career choices. They were survival mechanisms. Ways to process pain. Ways to connect with other people who were also just trying to make it through. He talked for another 30 minutes, and the audience sat in rapt attention. Not because he was funny, but because he was real. Vulnerable. Human. When the show ended, Robin didn't leave the stage immediately. He stood there, looking out at the audience, and said one more thing. "If you're struggling, if you feel alone, if you think no one cares, someone does. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Don't let the darkness win. Write. Sing. Paint. Talk to someone. Just don't give up. Because you never know whose life you might save just by staying." The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes. Backstage, Robin sat alone in his dressing room, holding the letter the woman had left for him. It was from Michael. It was 4 pages long. It talked about Dead Poets Society, about the years after, about how he almost didn't make it but how Robin's words had been a lifeline. At the end of the letter, Michael had written, "You taught me to seize the day. Because of you, I got more days to seize. Thank you for saving my life. I hope you know that your life matters too." Robin folded the letter carefully and put it in his jacket pocket. He carried it with him for years. 5 years later, in 2014, when Robin Williams died, Michael was teaching a class on Dead Poets Society. When he heard the news, he stopped mid-sentence. His students watched as their teacher, this man who had taught them about resilience and poetry and finding their voice, stood at the front of the room and cried. "This man saved my life," Michael told them. "And I never got to tell him in person. But he had. Through his mother. Through that letter. Through every student he inspired to keep going when things got hard." The truth is, Robin carried that letter everywhere. In his jacket pocket during interviews. In his bag during film shoots. On particularly hard days, when the depression felt like it was winning, he would pull it out and read it again. Michael's words became Robin's lifeline, the same way Robin's words had been Michael's. There's a recording that surfaced years later, from a radio interview Robin did just months before he died. The host asked him what kept him going, what made him keep performing even when things got difficult. Robin paused for a long time. Longer than was comfortable for radio. And then he said something that nobody understood at the time, but makes perfect sense now. "I got a letter once," he said quietly, "from a mother who told me I saved her son's life. But the thing is, he saved mine too. Every time I think about giving up, I think about him. About all the Michaels out there. And I think, what if I had given up before I made that movie? What if I had let the darkness win? That kid wouldn't be here. And neither would all the kids he's helping now." The host tried to lighten the mood, to move on to another topic, but Robin stayed there for a moment. "We don't know whose lives we're touching," he continued. "We don't know what small thing we do today might be the thing that keeps someone alive tomorrow. That's why we have to keep showing up. That's why we can't give up. Because someone out there needs us to stay, even if we don't know who they are yet." After Robin died, Michael wrote another letter. This one he posted publicly, on a blog that went viral within hours. In it, he talked about that night at the Moore Theater. He talked about his mother's courage in standing up and speaking. He talked about Robin's tears, his vulnerability, his humanity. "Robin Williams taught me that it's okay to be broken," Michael wrote. "He showed me that the cracks are where the light gets in. He didn't just play characters who saved lives, he actually did it. And when I thanked him, when my mother stood up in that theater and told him what his work had meant, he didn't take it as a compliment. He took it as a responsibility. He carried my story with him. He let it matter to him. That's what true empathy looks like." The blog post ended with a challenge. If someone's work, words, or presence has saved your life, tell them. Don't wait. Don't assume they know. Because the person who seems the strongest might be the one who needs to hear it the most. That challenge sparked a movement. Thousands of people started reaching out to artists, teachers, friends, family members, anyone who had been their lifeline, and telling them. Social media flooded with stories of lives saved by a song, a book, a movie, a conversation. And in every story, there was an echo of what happened that night in Seattle. The reminder that we are all connected. That our pain matters. That our survival matters. That speaking up matters. The legacy of that night in Seattle, of that moment when a mother's love and a son's survival intersected with a comedian's broken open heart, rippled outward in ways that can't be measured. Michael's students went on to become teachers, writers, counselors. They carried forward the message, your life matters. Your voice matters. Don't give up. And somewhere, in the mystery of how energy and intention and love move through the world, Robin Williams knew. He knew that his life had mattered. Not because of the Oscars or the box office numbers, but because of moments like that one. Moments when the mask came off and the real man underneath, scared, struggling, human, reached out and touched another human being who was also scared and struggling. That's the real story. Not the jokes. Not the characters. The connection. The reminder that we're all in this together, trying to make sense of chaos, trying to find reasons to stay. Share this story. Subscribe. Because Robin Williams' legacy isn't just in the movies he made. It's in the lives he touched, including yours. His voice still matters. And so does yours.